Hey guys, Roxbox90 here with another deconstructing of your guys' EDH decks, and this one is from tfms1andy, one of the first guys to hop in and send me his deck with a very detailed breakdown. Thank you very much for that. So his deck is a token build of Rhys the Redeemed, Rhys the Redeemed, however you want to call him. I think Rhys the Redeemed is cooler. This Rhys is like he's rising to be awesome, and he is. So he's definitely one of the cooler token generals to run, if only just because you can get him out really early, and he's very cheap, so you can replay him, and it's difficult to keep him down. Whereas some of the more expensive ones, such as Gave, are more immediately powerful, and in that you play him later, but their abilities are more forceful later. Whereas Rhys you play earlier, and he doesn't do that much early on, but later game he's also powerful, so you can have him die a bunch of times and it doesn't really matter as much. Anyway, so Rhys is himself clearly token based, and the entire deck, the goal of the deck is to build lots of tokens, ramp up to build lots of tokens, overrun with them. Interesting, simple plan, so let's get into it. So he's pretty good curve. He's pretty much balanced in terms of color overall, and his ramp, his mana curve is 3, pretty much is the centered average, which is very good because it means that he's pretty stable in terms of where his cards are. And since he's token, he doesn't really need the later 7-8 power stuff, because he really just, by that point, he should have already won the game, or if he didn't win the game already, then he should have just, he doesn't need the mana, he just has to, he can forward his mana into making more tokens. So let's just go into the deck, and I'll just give my thoughts of the cards. So let's start off. We have lands. Brushland is good pain land, Command Tower, Elfhame Palace. He has a lot of these in that the deck is somewhat budgetary. I'm not sure if it's 1v1 or multiplayer. I'm going to presume it's kind of a variant of both, because tokens tend to be capable, because the strategy is the same. So as long as you can make lots of tokens really powerful quickly, you can overrun in multiplayer or overrun in 1v1. There's not such a big difference as there is with some other decks. So I'm just going to pretend it's kind of both. And in lands base, having them hit play tapped, especially in a deck where you want ramp, hit play tapped lands are definitely what you want to avoid in a green-white ramp token deck. You want to get going quickly. You don't want your lands hitting play tapped, especially if you're this ramp you're looking for. You're going to be going to get basics anyway, most likely, or lands that wouldn't hit play tapped. So you should maybe try to minimize your coming to play tapped duels, even if you can't get the other filters and duels, shocks, whatever. You should definitely try to limit them. So Elfhame Palace, that sort of thing I would pull out probably for Wooded Bastion. Wooded Bastion's fairly cheap. You should be able to get something like that, or Temple Garden. I mean, you only need one of each of the expensive lands, so it shouldn't be too bad. Okay, and it's reasonably budget just from how your build is set up, except for, of course, things like a couple of things that are really expensive. So Guy's Cradle is ridiculous in this deck. Of course, it's ridiculous in any deck, but in this deck it's ridiculously good. Gargoyle's Castle, he said it's nice that you have this kind of 3-4 flying ultimate. I still don't think it's worthwhile. It's just really not. Your goal is tokens. I don't think you have to worry about that. If anything, if you're worried about flying stuff, just put in a flying card like Silklash Spider, or there's a legend, a green legend that kills flying, that channels as well from Kamigawa. I don't remember the name, but there's a number of good anti-flying options, and I would just put that in instead of this sort of card. Township is fantastic in this deck. Refuge has the same problem as Palace. Khalni Garden, it's nice you get an 0-1 token, but it hits play tapped for an 0-1 token. I don't think it's worthwhile, to be honest. Krosan Verge is a pretty decent, it hits play tapped, but at least you can search for another land. The problem is you don't have your shock and your duel, so honestly I don't know if you need that. If you'd rather just put in more basics and then have cards that search for basics. I'm not sure what you want to do exactly with that. It's kind of up to you. Mosswort Bridge is a hit play tap that's pretty good. Of course, you run the risk in token where you don't have a lot of super powered creatures in and of themselves, so that's maybe not as good, but still, it's a decent card. This is fine. Nantuko is fine. with the threshold. The problem is that it's, I don't know if you need it, because you risk running the loss of a land card, and you need the threshold in order for it to do anything. Otherwise, it's just a 1 colorless for 1 for the land. I don't think it's worth it. Oran-Rief, you don't really have persisting guys, so I don't think you really need it, to be honest. Pendelhaven is fine, although your goal is for your tokens to be bigger than not, so I probably wouldn't keep it in. Plains, same problem I say with all Scars lands. They're not really that great because they almost always play tapped, so I would get something else. The cycle lands are fine, and you have at least one. You have both of them in here, so that's totally fine. The bounce lands, if you need the budget, then fine. If you don't need the budget, I would, as I said, put in different dual cards. Stiring Wildwood is a man land, and this one is okay. If you were going to pick like between this and the Gargoyle Castle, I would probably pick this one, to be honest. Grow's good. Cycle. Of course, it's always nice to be able to put another token out. And Hollow is surprisingly good because a lot of decks don't concern the regeneration. A lot of the destroy spells on creatures don't deal with regeneration. They either exile or they just destroy. So that's pretty decent. Okay, so that's good, well and good. The land base, overall, I don't think you need 37 lands. I think with 2 colors and these colors, you could probably run 32, 33 and make room for maybe some more ramp cards. So you might want to consider doing that, especially some you don't really have. You have some 1-drop, but you might want to do a lot of like 1-drops, like Llanowar Elf and Birds of Paradise and stuff. Get a bunch of 1-drops and some more ramp cards in here instead of the lands themselves. So creatures, we got Avacyn's Pilgrim, exactly. That's a fine pick, especially you're ramping up. Captain of the Watch is really nice, even though you're not soldier focused per se. In and of himself, he's worth his power, and since you have other soldier makers, it overall I think is worth what it is. Really good in this deck, like really good. Really good, I think, because, I mean, you have so many creatures. I think he's phenomenal. Also, kind of crazy. He just makes your ramp through the roof, especially later game when you want to funnel X into making tokens. So, very nice utility. Definitely crazy. Endgame card, no question. Good choice. Crusader, I don't think it's worth it. It's honestly just a beater. If anything, I would just do another token maker. I don't think, or another guy that boosts cards. I don't think you need just one big-bodied creature. It seems kind of worthless. Geist-Honored Monk makes tokens, and in and of itself is pretty just a powerful card. But it also makes tokens, so that's pretty decent. Much better than like Crusader. Hero of Bladehold with Battle Cry is phenomenal, and she makes you tokens over and over again. So great. Prefect, you have lots of elves, so makes sense, and 1 to make a 1/1 elf, that's not going to be a 1/1 elf, it's going to be bigger. Good choice. Juniper Ranger is in every token deck pretty much, it's crazy. Crusader Tuskcaller also very good utility, makes just tokens, pumping them out. Knight-Captain of Eos is really nice, especially because it allows you to not worry about taking damage from everyone else, so you can kind of just charge ahead and be prepared with backup to fog yourself out, and of course makes tokens, so very nice choice. Mayor of Averbrook, honestly, I'm not sure if you want him. He seems a bit like he hits play and then you really have to wait for people not to play anything, and the chances of that happening are fairly small, and I just don't think it's worth it in this sort of deck. Might want something else. Mentor the Meek is crazy here. Michaeloth is crazy. Odric is nice in that you can decide that no one blocks you and you win the game. I think that normally it's not good, but in this deck it is good. Rhys, of course, we said is crazy. Selesnya Evangel is very nice in that it can be a constant token maker as utility. I think that's pretty good. Selesnya Guildmage is kind of the same thing. Doomsayer is nice in that it makes you tokens. You're not going to likely be under 5 life, but it's just a constant token maker. That's pretty good. Tolsimir is crazy in this deck. Makes a 4/4 token off the bat and makes everything stronger. 2 for 1. Twilight Drover is great also. It's an easy way to make lots of tokens, like crazy number of tokens. I think he's fantastic and underrated. Vertaloth is a great way to dump mana in late game in order to make lots of tokens. And Wilt-Leaf Liege, it can't be bad because if he's discarded, which is likely in EDH, you get him out, and it's just pure value. So for sorceries, we got Beast-Style Menace, which is just a bunch of tokens. I think that's great. Cultivate, you might want to run Kodama's Reach as well, as I said, instead of a land. Gather the Townsfolk, I think, is a bit underwhelming. It's kind of too few, but I can see why you would run it. If it fits your curve, keep it in. Otherwise, try to get something that makes more tokens. Or, yeah, that makes sense. Green Sun's good tutor. Growth Spasm is nice in that I like the ramp and the token, so that's good. Hour of Reckoning, it's just, in this sort of deck, it's crazy with the number of tokens you make. Same thing with the Assembly. It's just like, whoa, craziness. Overrun is overrun. Stampede is ridiculous in this deck. Rebirth. Rebirth is like, you're trying to be cheap on the Wrath, and that's totally fine if you're a budget. But to be honest, I think you should probably run. Just cheaper Wrath spells if you plan. I mean, I don't know. Just having a big creature, I'm not quite sure it's worth it. But I mean, that's really just up to you. Choice. It's not a bad Wrath, that's for certain. Primal Command is crazy. Tommy Reinforcements, I'm not sure. I mean, making the 3 tokens is really the real reason you have it in here, not the life gain. And I guess it's worth its value late game. So that's or early or late game. So that seems like a good pick. I know I'm not being very critical because honestly, I think a lot of these are just pretty nice picks. Baloth, I don't like in that I don't know if it's worth its cost, to be honest. Sure, yeah, it's like conditional. You have to wait for someone to do something. I'm not sure I like that. Fracturing Gust is nice Wrath. Very good, especially lets you gain back life. I like that. Path to Exile, I would probably run also some other removal spells, if you can, like Swords to Plowshares and things like that, maybe, instead of some of the lands, just to give you more ways to deal with scary creatures, because even if you have lots of tokens, if they get massive Eldrazi out or something, then you're in big trouble. And big creatures are honestly a threat to you until you get fully settled and set up. So I would maybe do that. Seed Spark, I like. Good choice. I think it's a pretty good choice. Also, Return to Dust, even though I kind of say shove it into every deck that can have it, it's such a good card advantage. You probably want to run that too if you can. And Summoning Trap is, yeah, it's pretty good. You don't really have a lot of big creatures, so I'm not so sure if you need it. And especially in that you're not countering. You're not countering, and the chance of someone really countering your creatures, there aren't many creatures here that your opponent would dump out to counter, so I'm not sure if it's worth it. Obviously, it depends on how it's gone for you when you've played. Enchantments, Aura Shards is crazy here. It's going to be a hate card, but you just deal with that. It's crazy. Awakening Zone makes you tokens all the time. Beastmaster Ascension is ridiculously good here, as is Doubling Season. Glad you have that card, even though it's not exactly budget. Then you have a bunch of just pump cards. All makes sense. Journeys to Nowhere, I would do Prison Term instead. It's honestly just a better card in this format. Luminarch Ascension, I don't know if it's just turn 2 that it's really good, but I think it's good ever if you can get it going. Predators is nice. I think it's a nice way to get back from Wraths. I agree with that choice. O-Ring is also just great removal. I don't see Beast Within here. That should definitely go in. Parallel Lives is great. True Conviction is crazy. Where's the Chromus Memorial? You should be able to get that in here now, especially now that it's cheaper. Druidic Satchel is okay. It's fine. Another ramp card. Skull Clamp's crazy. Body and Mind, nice protection, and it gives you a token. The mill doesn't matter so much, but it's a fine pick, especially for Rhys. The Redeemed Ajani is Token Lord. Elspeth is pretty good. I think you'd want the other Elspeth as well, or maybe even more. Garruk Wildspeaker is nice token creator, and I like that the ramp forward with the overrun is just raw value in this deck completely. And Garruk Primal Hunter is great with the card draw, but really he's just a huge token maker. So overall, as I said, the deck's really good. I think it's pretty solid. Little recommendations here or there. Hope it helped. That's it for me, Ruxbox90 signing out. I'll see you guys in the next deck.